I stood frozen in the corner of our extravagant living room, watching my sister Bryn squeal with delight as she unwrapped a small box containing a car key. My parents beamed with pride. My father's arm around my mother as they watched their favorite daughter jump up and down. The brand new BMW waited in the driveway, complete with an enormous red bow. Meanwhile, I clutched the $25 gift card they had given me, along with the $100 lottery ticket I had purchased, to give them, burning a hole in my pocket. No one even noticed the tears welling in my eyes. I worked 2 jobs while maintaining a perfect GPA in college, yet my unemployed 26-year-old sister, who still lived at home, received a luxury car. What happened next would change everything about our family dynamic forever. Growing up, I always knew I was different from my sister. Our parents, James and Allison Parker, made no effort to hide their preference. My father built his wealth as an investment banker, working long hours while my mother maintained their social status as the perfect stay-at-home wife. They created a picturesque American family, except I never quite fit the frame. When Bryn turned 16, they threw her a party that transformed our backyard into a music festival, complete with a stage, professional sound system, and catering that cost more than what most families spend on a used car. My 16th birthday passed with a quiet dinner and a store-bought cake that still had the price sticker on the bottom. We just didn't have time to plan anything bigger. Minnie, my mother, had explained, while scrolling through her phone, barely making eye contact. Besides, you're not really the party type, are you? I wasn't, but only because I'd learned early that getting excited about anything in our house only led to disappointment. I channeled my energy into academics, instead believing that achievement would finally earn their recognition. In high school, I maintained a 4.0 GPA, became class president, and led the debate team to nationals. My parents attended exactly 0 of my competitions. Meanwhile, they never missed a single one of Bryn's mediocre dance recitals, where she was perpetually relegated to the back row. "Your sister needs our support more than you do," my father would say. "You're so independent, Minnie. It's one of your best qualities." Independence wasn't a choice. It was a necessity born from their neglect. By 18, I had learned to expect nothing, which is exactly what I received when I graduated as valedictorian. My parents sat stone-faced through my speech, then rushed to congratulate a teary-eyed Bryn for enduring the ceremony. My graduation gift was a card with a $50 bill tucked inside. 3 weeks later, they surprised Bryn with a 3-week European vacation, just because she seemed stressed lately. Despite all this, some childish part of me still yearned for their approval. I worked 2 jobs throughout college while maintaining my scholarship. My apartment was small, but clean. My wardrobe modest, but professional. I budgeted carefully, prioritizing rent and tuition payments over luxuries. When my ancient car broke down beyond repair, I started taking the bus, adding 2 hours to my daily commute. "We'd help if we could, honey," my mother said when I finally swallowed my pride and asked for assistance with transportation. "But your father and I are focused on retirement planning now. You understand." I did understand, or thought I did, until the Tuesday before Christmas, when I visited my childhood friend Hannah, whose mother worked as my parents' housekeeper. We were catching up in her kitchen when she mentioned something about dropping off cleaning supplies at Bryn's downtown apartment. "Downtown apartment? Bryn lives at home," I said, confused. Hannah looked equally puzzled. "No, she's had that luxury apartment on Riverside for almost a year now. Your parents pay for it." "I thought you knew." My stomach dropped. All those times my parents claimed they couldn't help me with my student loans because they were tightening their belts, they were secretly paying thousands a month for Bryn's city apartment. The revelation felt like a physical blow. That night, I stared at the Christmas gifts I had saved for months to buy an $800 watch for my father and a designer silk scarf for my mother that cost nearly half my monthly rent. The lottery ticket had been an afterthought, something fun to add to their card. A $20 scratch-off seemed appropriately festive, but when the shop was out, I impulsively upgraded to the $100 holiday millionaire ticket, telling myself they deserved something special. Now I wondered if they deserved anything at all. Christmas morning arrived with picture-perfect snow dusting the ground. I dressed carefully in a forest green sweater and black slacks, applied subtle makeup, and styled my hair into loose waves. The wrapped gifts for my family sat on my kitchen counter, the expensive watch for Dad, the silk scarf for Mom, and a collection of luxury bath products for Bryn. The $100 lottery ticket sat in a simple card. Still undecided whether I would give it to them or not, I arrived at my parents' sprawling colonial home at precisely 11 o'clock. The house looked like something from a holiday magazine, spread with professional decorations adorning every surface. Wreaths hung on each window, and the massive Christmas tree in the foyer sparkled with coordinated ornaments and ribbon. "Minnie, you're here," my mother said, air kissing near my cheek. She wore an elegant cream-colored cashmere sweater and pearl earrings that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Everyone's in the living room already." My father barely looked up from his phone when I entered. "Merry Christmas," he said distractedly. Bryn lounged on the sofa in designer loungewear, scrolling through her phone and looking bored. "Let's open presents," my mother announced, clapping her hands together like we were children. "Bryn first, of course." I watched as my sister unwrapped a steady stream of expensive gifts, designer clothes, the latest smartphone jewelry, and high-end electronics. Her reactions ranged from mild pleasure to outright indifference. My parents beamed with each unveiling as if her lukewarm responses were the height of gratitude. Now, for the real present, my father announced after Bryn had accumulated a small mountain of gifts. He pulled a small box from his pocket and handed it to her with a flourish. Bryn opened it half-heartedly, then let out a shriek when she saw the car key nestled inside. "Is this real?" she demanded, suddenly animated. "Go look in the driveway," my mother urged, already recording on her phone. We all followed Bryn outside, where a brand-new BMW SUV sat gleaming in the driveway. An enormous red bow perched on its roof. The price tag had to be at least $70,000. "It's the exact one I wanted," Bryn squealed, running around the vehicle. "Oh my God. You guys are the best parents ever." My mother turned to me, still recording. "Isn't your sister lucky, Minnie? Say something for the video." I managed a tight smile. "Congratulations, Bryn. That's quite a gift." When we returned inside, my mother handed me a small envelope. "Your turn, dear." Inside was a $25 gift card to Applebee's, a chain restaurant I had mentioned disliking years ago. The card wasn't even in a proper holder, just loosely placed in the envelope. "Thank you," I said quietly, fighting to keep my expression neutral. "We know you like to eat out," my father explained, not quite making eye contact. "And you're so busy with work and school, we thought something practical would be best," my mother added. "Bryn needs a reliable car for her social commitments," my father continued, as if justifying their decision. "You understand?" I nodded mechanically, thinking about my daily 2-hour bus commute to work and school. About how I had asked for help with transportation just months ago and been denied. "I need to use the restroom," I murmured, clutching my purse where the lottery ticket sat in its card. I had planned to give it to them collectively, a fun little addition to their main gifts. Now I questioned whether they deserved even that small gesture from me. In the privacy of the guest bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face and tried to regulate my breathing. The contrast between my gifts and Bryn's wasn't just stark, it was cruel. $25 versus $70,000. The message couldn't be clearer. I simply didn't matter to them. As I reached for a towel, I heard voices from the adjacent study where the bathroom shared a vent. My parents and Bryn were talking unaware. I could hear every word. "Did you see her face when she got that gift card?" Bryn laughed. "Priceless." "Well, what did she expect?" my father replied. "She's always been so serious about her independence. We're just respecting her wishes." "Did you see those gifts she brought?" my mother added. "That watch looks like something from a department store sale rack." "And that scarf," Bryn snickered. "As if you would ever wear something so basic, Mom." "Let's be kind," my father said, though. His tone suggested amusement rather than reprimand. "Minnie does her best with what she has." "Her best is pretty pathetic," Bryn replied. And they all laughed. I stood frozen, the towel clutched in my trembling hands as my family mocked, Not just the gifts I had sacrificed to buy, but my very existence. In that moment, something hardened inside me. The last thread of hope that they might someday see me, value me, love me, snapped completely. I returned to the living room with a practiced smile, the kind I had perfected over years of hiding disappointment. My expensive gifts suddenly seemed like desperate pleas for approval, but I couldn't take them back without explanation. So I handed them over and watched as my parents feigned delight. How thoughtful, my mother said about the silk scarf, barely glancing at it before setting it aside. Very nice, my father commented on the watch, not even removing it from its box. Bryn didn't even pretend to appreciate the bath products, merely shrugging and mumbling thanks before returning to admiring her car key. The lottery ticket remained in my purse. Throughout dinner, I pushed food around my plate, while my parents fawned over Bryn, discussing her plans for the new car and her supposed job interviews that never seemed to materialize into actual employment. No one asked about my classes, my work, or my life. I need to head out, I finally said during dessert. I have an early shift tomorrow. On the day after Christmas, my mother asked as if I had announced plans to commit a crime. Some of us have responsibilities, I replied, the edge in my voice going unnoticed. Well, if you must, my father said, already turning back to Bryn. The drive back to my apartment felt surreal. Christmas lights blurred through my tears as I navigated familiar streets, feeling more alone than ever. Inside my small, sparsely furnished apartment, I collapsed onto my worn sofa and finally allowed the sobs to come. After crying until my throat ached, I mechanically went through my evening routine. While preparing for bed, I found the Christmas card with the lottery ticket still in my purse. On impulse, I took out the Holiday Millionaire scratch-off and grabbed a coin from my nightstand. "Merry Christmas to me," I whispered, bitterly scratching off the metallic coating without any real hope or interest. I had never purchased a lottery ticket before and wasn't entirely sure how to read it. But as the symbols emerged, something seemed unusual about the patterns. I grabbed my phone and Googled how to interpret the results. My hands began to shake as I cross-referenced the symbols with the winner's key. Triple-checking, I stared in disbelief at what appeared to be a $750,000 winning ticket. "This can't be real," I whispered to my empty apartment. I spent the next hour researching how to verify and claim lottery winnings, my mind racing with possibilities. According to the lottery website, I needed to fill out a claim form and submit it in person at the state lottery office. For prizes over $100,000, they recommended legal and financial consultation before claiming. Sleep was impossible that night. I alternated between giddy disbelief and paranoia that I'd somehow misread the ticket. By morning, I had researched every aspect of lottery claims, tax implications, and winners' rights in our state. I learned I could remain anonymous by claiming through a trust protecting my privacy. For 2 days, I went through the motions of normal life, the winning ticket secured in a sealed envelope inside my apartment safe. I researched financial advisors specializing in sudden wealth and scheduled an appointment for the following week. For the first time in my life, I felt a sense of power and possibility. Then my phone rang with my mother's ringtone, a sound that usually filled me with dread. This time I answered with curious detachment. "Minnie, we have a situation," my mother began without preamble. Her voice had the tight, controlled quality it got when she was extremely upset, but trying to maintain composure. "What's wrong?" I asked, though I felt oddly disconnected from whatever crisis she was about to present. "It's Bryn. She had a little accident with the new car," my mother said, her voice dropping to a whisper, as though someone might overhear. "She's fine physically, but the car has some significant damage." "That's unfortunate," I replied neutrally. "Yes, well, the thing is," my mother continued, her voice now taking on the cajoling tone she used when she wanted something. "We need to get it repaired quickly before your father finds out." "Before Dad finds out? Why would you hide it from him?" A long pause followed. "Bryn had been drinking," my mother finally admitted. "Not much, just a glass of wine with friends. But your father would overreact. You know how he is." I did know. My father had a strict zero-tolerance policy for drinking and driving, the single moral stance he seemed to hold consistently. If he learned Bryn had damaged her brand new car while under the influence, there would be actual consequences perhaps for the first time in her life. What exactly do you want from me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. We need about $3,000 for the repairs. The body shop can rush it while your father is on his golf trip this weekend. I'd ask him for the money, but he'd want to know why, and it would just cause unnecessary drama. And where am I supposed to get $3,000? I asked incredulously. Don't you have savings? My mother asked, as if this were a perfectly reasonable request. Or a credit card. It's for your sister Minnie. We'd do the same for you. The audacity of that last statement nearly made me laugh out loud. No, Mom, you absolutely would not do the same for me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I'll need to think about this. There isn't time to think. The car needs to go in tomorrow morning if we want it fixed before your father returns Sunday night. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up without waiting for her response. I sat in stunned silence processing what had just happened. My sister crashes her brand new luxury car while driving under the influence, and their solution is to ask me, the child they had given a $25 gift card to, for thousands of dollars to cover it up. The absurdity was almost comical. My phone buzzed with incoming texts from both my mother and Bryn, increasingly urgent pleas for help. I turned it off and sat in the blessed silence of my apartment. The winning lottery ticket suddenly feeling like much more than financial freedom. It represented a chance at something I'd never had before: the power to say no. The next morning I woke to aggressive knocking on my apartment door. Groggily checking the time, I saw it was barely 7:30, my first day off in weeks. Through the peephole I recognized Bryn's scowling face. With a deep sigh I opened the door. Bryn pushed past me without greeting, her designer purse swinging wildly as she stormed into my living room. Why aren't you answering your phone? She demanded. Mom's been trying to reach you all night. I calmly closed the door. Good morning to you too, Bryn. She rolled her eyes dramatically. We don't have time for pleasantries. Did Mom tell you what happened? I need that money today, Minnie. The body shop opens at 9. I don't have $3,000 lying around, I said simply. And even if I did, why would I give it to you? Bryn looked genuinely shocked by my response, as if the idea of me refusing had never occurred to her. Because that's what family does. She offered her tone, suggesting I was being deliberately obtuse. Family, I repeated slowly. Is that what we are? Because from where I stand, it seems like I'm just an afterthought in our parents' perfect family of 3. Oh my God, is this about Christmas? Bryn groaned. Are you seriously still pouting because I got a car and you got a gift card? Grow up, Minnie. The casual cruelty of her dismissal hit harder than I expected. You really don't see it, do you? The constant favoritism, the double standards, the way they give you everything and me nothing. It's not my fault they love me more, Bryn said with a shrug, then immediately looked like she regretted her candor. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, I replied quietly. And that's fine. At least we're being honest now. Bryn paced my small living room, clearly frustrated by my refusal to immediately solve her problem. Look, I don't have time for your victim complex right now. If you don't have the cash, what about a credit card? You could charge it and I'll pay you back when I get a job. When have you ever paid anyone back for anything I asked? And when have you ever actually gotten a job you've been supposedly interviewing for years? Her face flushed. That's not fair. The job market is complicated, and I'm looking for something that matches my talents. Which are what exactly? Screw you, Minnie, she snapped. Not everyone is a boring workaholic like you. Some of us have social lives and interests outside of earning gold stars from professors. I laughed without humor. And those social lives apparently include drinking and driving. Bryn's expression darkened. It was 1 glass of wine, and I barely scraped the car on a parking garage column. You're making it sound like I committed a felony. If it's so minor, why not tell Dad the truth? Because he'll overreact, obviously. He'll take the car away and I need it. For what, driving to your secret downtown apartment that they pay for? I watched her face carefully as I said this. Bryn's eyes widened in panic before she could compose herself. Who told you about that? Does it matter? What matters is they told me they couldn't help me with my student loans or when my car broke down because they were focusing on retirement planning while secretly paying for your luxury apartment. Bryn had the decency to look momentarily ashamed, but it quickly passed. It's not just an apartment, she said defensively. It's part of my trust fund distribution. The terms specified housing could be provided directly. I felt like I'd been slapped. Trust fund. You have a trust fund. Realizing her mistake, Bryn backpedaled. It's not that big a deal. Just something Grandpa set up before he died. For you, but not for me, I said flatly. Our grandfather had passed when I was 12, and Bryn was 14. He had always seemed to treat us equally when he was alive. Why would he only set up a trust for you? Bryn shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't just Grandpa's decision. Mom and Dad had input on how his estate was distributed. They thought you were more self-sufficient. The revelation felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Not only had my parents consistently denied me support throughout my life, but they had actively diverted resources that should have been shared equally. This wasn't just passive neglect. It was deliberate exclusion. You need to leave, I said quietly. Not until you help me with the car, Bryn insisted. If you won't give me the money, at least let me use your credit card. I'll figure out how to pay it off later. No, Minnie, don't be like this. If you don't help me, Mom and Dad will think you're being deliberately spiteful. And if I do help you, I'm just enabling more of their toxic favoritism, I countered. Besides, maybe facing consequences for once would be good for you. Bryn's expression turned ugly. Fine. Be that way. But don't come crying to any of us when you finally realize how lonely your perfect little independent life is. There's a reason Mom and Dad prefer me, you know. I'm actually pleasant to be around. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my father's ringtone. Better answer, that Bryn said smugly. I called them on my way over. They're probably wondering why their usually obedient daughter is suddenly being difficult. I answered the phone, putting it on speaker so Bryn could hear. Hello, Minnie. My father's authoritative voice filled the room. Your mother tells me Bryn needs some financial assistance. What's this I hear about you refusing to help your sister? I don't have $3,000, Dad, I said simply. Everyone has credit cards these days, he replied dismissively. This is what family does, Minnie. We help each other in times of need. Like when my car broke down and I needed help, I asked. Or when I asked for assistance with my student loans. A pause. Those were different situations. You've always been so independent, we assumed you had it handled. And Bryn isn't independent enough to handle the consequences of her own actions. That's enough, my father said sharply. I'm disappointed in your attitude. After everything we've done for you, the absurdity of that statement broke something in me. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? Name one thing, one single instance, where you put me first, or even considered me equal to Bryn. We put a roof over your head and food on the table, he replied, anger creeping into his voice. We paid for your primary education, the bare legal minimum required of parents, I noted. Anything else? I don't have to justify myself to you, he said coldly. But I expected better from you, Minnie. Family stands together. Apparently only when Bryn needs something, I replied. The answer is still no. After hanging up, I turned to my sister. You need to leave now. Bryn glared at me. You've just made a huge mistake. When you finally realize how pathetic your life is without family support, don't expect any of us to welcome you back with open arms. After she stormed out, I called in sick to both my jobs and spent the day in a daze processing everything I'd learned. The trust fund revelation explained so much about our family's financial dynamics, but it hurt more than I could have imagined. This wasn't just favoritism. It was systematic exclusion. A deliberate choice my parents had made to prioritize one child over the other. Late that afternoon, I decided to get some fresh air, hoping to clear my head. At the local coffee shop, I ran into Taylor, a childhood friend who had witnessed much of my family's treatment over the years. "You look terrible," Taylor said bluntly, as we sat with our drinks. "Family Christmas. Go that well, huh?" I found myself pouring out everything. The car versus gift card, the overheard mockery, Bryn's crash, the trust fund revelation. Taylor listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "Minnie, I say this with love," she finally said, "but your family is toxic as hell. This isn't normal or okay." "I know," I admitted. "I think I've always known. I just kept hoping things would change if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, proved my worth somehow." "You shouldn't have to prove your worth to people who are supposed to love you unconditionally," Taylor pointed out. "Have you considered creating some serious distance?" I nodded slowly. "I think it's time. But there's something else." I lowered my voice. "I won the lottery. Not the Powerball, or anything, but a scratch-off ticket. $750,000. Taylor's eyes widened. "Holy shit, Minnie. That's life-changing money." "I know. And I haven't told my family. The ticket was actually meant to be their Christmas gift, but after seeing how they treated me compared to Bryn," I trailed off. "Don't tell them," Taylor said immediately. "Seriously. They'll just find a way to make it about Bryn somehow." As if to prove Taylor's point, my phone chimed with a notification. It was a social media post from my mother. A photo of Bryn posing next to a different brand new car. This one, a sporty convertible. The caption read, "Insurance came through quickly. Nothing keeps our girl down for long." I showed Taylor the post. "Looks like they solved the car problem without my help after all." "That's convenient," Taylor said sarcastically. "But notice there's no mention of Bryn's drinking or the real reason for the replacement. They're maintaining the perfect family image at all costs." "Their perfect family of 3, I murmured, finally understanding with complete clarity that there was never going to be room for me in that picture. The following Monday, I sat in the office of Diane Mercer, a financial advisor specializing in sudden wealth. Her office was tastefully appointed but not ostentatious, which had been one of the reasons I'd chosen her after careful research. The last thing I wanted was someone who would push me toward flashy, high-risk investments. "So Miss Parker," Diane began after I'd explained my situation. "First, congratulations on your windfall. Now, before we discuss specific strategies, I'd like to understand your goals. What do you hope to accomplish with these funds?" The question gave me pause. I'd been so caught up in the mechanics of claiming the prize and the drama with my family that I hadn't fully considered what I wanted the money to do for me. "Security," I said finally. "I want to finish my education without debt. I want a reliable car. And I hesitated, the concept still new to me. Freedom from toxic relationships." Diane nodded approvingly. "Those are excellent priorities. Let's break this down. After taxes, you'll likely receive around $450,000. That's certainly life-changing money, but it's not infinite wealth. Managed properly, however, it can provide exactly the kind of security you're seeking." Over the next 2 hours, we outlined a comprehensive financial plan, setting aside money for tax payments, creating an emergency fund paying off my existing student loans, establishing an investment portfolio balanced between growth and income, and allocating funds for completion of my degree program. We also budgeted for a modest but reliable car, and 6 months of living expenses to give me breathing room. "Now, about your family," Diane said carefully. "I understand you haven't disclosed this windfall to them." "No, and I don't plan to," I replied firmly. "That's entirely your right," she assured me. "However, in my experience, secrets like this have a way of eventually coming out, especially with lottery winnings. I recommend preparing for that possibility." I nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her advice. "What do you suggest?" "First, claim your winnings through a blind trust. I can refer you to an attorney who specializes in this. Second, Consider relocating if that feels right for you. Sometimes physical distance makes emotional boundaries easier to maintain. The idea of relocation resonated immediately. There was nothing truly holding me to this city, except proximity to my family, which no longer felt like an advantage. My university offered online completion options for my degree, and my current jobs were dead ends anyway. I'll consider that seriously, I told her. Thank you. As I left Diane's office, I felt a newfound clarity. For the first time, I was thinking about my future completely on my own terms without the shadow of parental approval hanging over me. That evening, I began researching job opportunities in other cities. My degree in business administration with a focus on nonprofit management was versatile enough for various locations. After several hours of searching, I discovered an opening at a charitable foundation in Seattle, specializing in educational access for underprivileged students. The position would start in 3 months, perfect timing for my graduation and relocation plans. Without overthinking it, I submitted my application along with a cover letter explaining my passion for educational equity based on my own experiences with financial barriers. Then I began looking at apartment options in Seattle, marveling at how concrete this potential fresh start was becoming. Over the next few weeks, I met with the attorney Diane had recommended, creating a blind trust to claim my lottery winnings. I completed the paperwork at the state lottery office, received confirmation of my claim, and began the waiting period for fund disbursement. According to the Lottery Commission, I could expect payment within 30 days. Meanwhile, I had minimal contact with my family. My mother called twice, leaving voicemails that masterfully combined guilt trips with casual dismissals of our previous conflict. Minnie, darling, I hope you're over your little tantrum by now. Bryn's car situation worked out fine without your help, though it would have been nice to see some family loyalty. Your father and I are planning a family vacation to Cabo next month. We assume you won't be interested since you're always working, but let us know if you can manage to fit us into your busy schedule. I deleted the messages without responding. As February turned to March, several significant developments occurred in rapid succession. I received notification that my lottery funds had been transferred to the trust account. I completed my final coursework for graduation, and most unexpectedly, I received an email from the Seattle Foundation requesting a video interview. The interview went remarkably well. The Foundation's director, Angela, seemed genuinely impressed by my academic achievements and work experience. She was particularly interested in my perspective on barriers to education access. Your understanding of these challenges seems very personal, she observed toward the end of our conversation. It is, I admitted. I've experienced firsthand how financial constraints can limit educational opportunities even with academic merit. 2 days later, Angela called to offer me the position with a starting salary that exceeded my expectations. The timing felt almost magical. All these positive changes converging at once. As I began concrete planning for my move, I started therapy sessions with Dr. Renee Coleman, a psychologist specializing in family trauma. After just 3 sessions, I had more insight into my family dynamics than I'd gained in years of private reflection. What you're describing is a classic golden child divided by scapegoat dynamic, Dr. Coleman explained during our 4th session. It's particularly destructive because it's often covert, making the scapegoated child question their own perceptions. I always thought if I just tried harder, achieved more, they'd finally see me, I admitted. That's exactly how the dynamic perpetuates itself, she said gently. But the painful truth is that no achievement will ever be enough, because the issue isn't actually about you or your worth. It's about the family system itself, which requires someone to fill the scapegoat role. So there was never anything I could have done differently. Not really, no. And that's actually liberating once you accept it. It means you're free to stop trying to earn love that should have been freely given. These sessions helped me process my grief and anger, preparing me emotionally for the separation ahead. By early April, my plans were solidified: apartment, leased in Seattle, moving company booked, resignation letters, prepared for my current jobs, and financial arrangements completed. The only remaining task was to inform my family of my decision to move. I considered simply leaving without explanation, but Dr. Coleman had suggested that making a clear statement of my intentions would be healthier for my own closure regardless of their reaction. I was composing an email to my parents when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a group text from my mother to the family. Exciting news! We've booked a family vacation to Hawaii for the first week of June. James has a conference, and we thought we'd all join for a proper family getaway. Minutes later, my phone rang with my mother's number. "Did you get my text?" she asked without preamble when I answered. "We need to know if you're joining us in Hawaii." "I can't make it," I replied evenly. "I'm moving to Seattle in May for a new job." A long pause followed. "Seattle," she finally said. "What are you talking about? You never mentioned moving." "I'm telling you now," I said. "I've accepted a position with an educational foundation there." "This is very sudden," she said, her voice taking on a disapproving edge. "Your father will want to discuss this. We should have a family meeting." The predictable summons to a family meeting whenever I did something unexpected used to fill me with dread. Now I felt only mild annoyance. "Fine," I agreed. "But I've already made my decision," my mother huffed. "We'll see. Dinner tomorrow at 6. Don't be late." As I ended the call, I realized this would likely be my final confrontation with my family before starting my new life. The thought was both terrifying and strangely liberating. That night, I received an email notification that the final payment from my trust had been processed. I now had full access to my lottery winnings, carefully structured for long-term financial security. Whatever happened at tomorrow's family meeting, I was financially independent for the first time in my life. As I prepared for bed, my phone chimed with a text from Bryn. "Mom says you're bailing on Hawaii for some job in Seattle. What's your problem? We finally include you in something, and you have to be difficult as usual." I turned off my phone without responding. Tomorrow would be challenging enough without engaging in preliminary skirmishes. For tonight, I would rest secure in the knowledge that I was finally taking control of my own life. The following evening, I arrived at my parents' home precisely at 6 o'clock. The familiar driveway was crowded with vehicles. My father's Mercedes sedan, my mother's Range Rover Bryn's replacement convertible, and surprisingly, my aunt, Patricia's, SUV. Apparently, this family meeting warranted reinforcements. I smoothed my blazer and straightened my shoulders before ringing the doorbell. My mother answered immediately, as though she'd been waiting by the door. "Finally," she said, though I was exactly on time. "Everyone's in the dining room." I followed her through the house, noting the formal table settings in the dining room. This was to be an ambush, disguised as a civilized dinner. "Minnie," my father said from the head of the table. "Sit down. Your Aunt Patricia has joined us for this discussion." Aunt Patricia nodded stiffly. As my father's older sister, she had always functioned as his echo chamber, reinforcing whatever position he took on family matters. "Hello, everyone," I said calmly, taking the only empty seat which predictably positioned me opposite the rest of them, the physical arrangement mirroring the emotional reality. "I've ordered from Giovanni's," my mother announced, naming my father's favorite Italian restaurant. "It should be here any minute." Small talk dominated until the food arrived, with Bryn chattering about her latest social engagements and my father discussing golf scores with Aunt Patricia. I ate quietly, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. It began as dessert was served. My father cleared his throat authoritatively. "Now, Minnie, your mother tells me you're planning some sort of move to Seattle." "Yes," I confirmed. "I've accepted a position with the Westland Educational Foundation. I start May 15th. "That seems very sudden," he frowned. "What's wrong with your current situation?" "Nothing's wrong with it," I replied. "This is simply a better opportunity, both professionally and personally." "Seattle is so far away," my mother interjected. "And rainy." "You hate rain." "I've never said I hate rain," I pointed out. "Well, I distinctly remember you complaining about it during our Vancouver trip," she insisted. "That was Bryn," I said flatly. "I've never been to Vancouver with you." An awkward silence followed this correction. My father quickly redirected. "The point is, making such a major life decision without consulting your family is irresponsible," he stated. "We have certain expectations about how these things are handled." And what exactly are those expectations? I asked, my voice steady. Because from where I sit, they seem to vary significantly depending on which daughter you're addressing. My father's expression hardened. What is that supposed to mean? It means that Bryn gets a luxury car and a trust fund apartment while I get a $25 gift card, and criticism for trying to build my own life. Here we go again with the victim mentality, Bryn groaned. Not everything is about you, Minnie. That's exactly my point, I replied. Nothing in this family has ever been about me, and I've finally accepted that it never will be. This is so dramatic, my mother sighed. We've always supported you, Minnie, but you've chosen to be independent. We've simply respected that choice, respected it, or used it as an excuse to justify your favoritism. Enough, my father said sharply. This attitude is exactly why we're concerned about your judgment. If you can't see how blessed you've been as part of this family, then perhaps you do need some perspective. But cutting yourself off with this impulsive move isn't the answer. It's not impulsive, I said. I've thought about this carefully. Have you thought about how you'll manage financially? Aunt Patricia asked, speaking up for the first time. Seattle is expensive, and entry-level nonprofit work isn't known for generous salaries. I've done my research. I'll be fine. With what savings? My father challenged. You've been working minimum wage jobs while studying. There's no way you've accumulated enough for a cross-country move. And the cost of living difference. It was the opening I hadn't planned to use, but now seemed inevitable. Actually, my financial situation has changed recently. 4 pairs of eyes fixed on me with sudden interest. What does that mean? My mother asked. It means I've come into some money, I said carefully. My father leaned forward. An inheritance. From whom? Not an inheritance. Remember that lottery ticket I bought for Christmas? The one I was going to give to you and Mom, but decided to keep like for you? Silence descended on the room as they processed this information. You won the lottery. Bryn finally asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and something darker. Yes. The holiday millionaire scratch-off. $750,000 to be exact. My father's expression shifted instantly from dismissive to calculating. $750,000, he repeated slowly. And you kept this information from your family? I did, I confirmed. Just like you kept information about Bryn's trust fund from me. That was different, my mother interjected quickly. The trust was established with specific conditions. Conditions that excluded me, I noted. Your grandfather wanted to ensure his assets were distributed wisely, my father said stiffly. We advised him based on our understanding of both our daughter's characters and needs. You mean you convinced him that Bryn needed financial support while I didn't? I translated. Just like you apparently convinced him to put loans in my name for Bryn's failed boutique attempt 3 years ago. This last part was a shot in the dark based on a credit alert I'd received recently revealing loan applications I'd never submitted. The stunned expressions around the table confirmed my suspicion. How did you find out about that? My father demanded. So it's true. You took out loans in my name, without my knowledge or consent. That's identity theft. Dad, it's illegal. It was a temporary measure, he said defensively. The business opportunity for Bryn needed immediate action, and we planned to refinance under our names once it was established. Except the business failed within 6 months, I said. And now those loans are damaging my credit score. Loans I never agreed to. We've been making the payments, my mother said quickly. It hasn't cost you anything. Except my credit rating and my ability to trust my own family, I countered. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Then, as I'd predicted, the entire tone of the conversation shifted. Well, this lottery win certainly changes things, my father said. His voice suddenly warm and conciliatory. $750,000 is a significant sum, though not as life-changing as people might imagine after taxes. You'll need proper financial guidance. I've already arranged that, I said, with whom he pressed. Because I have excellent connections in wealth management who specialize in windfall situations. I'd be happy to make introductions. I've engaged my own financial advisor, thank you. But family expertise is so valuable in these situations, my mother insisted. Your father has decades of experience with investments, and yet he committed identity theft against his own daughter, I noted. Not exactly a trust-inspiring credential. That's ancient history now, my father dismissed with a wave of his hand. What matters is moving forward as a family. In fact, this windfall might allow you to join our Hawaii trip after all. We could make it a real celebration. The speed with which they pivoted from criticizing my decision to move to embracing me now that I had money was breathtaking in its transparency. I won't be joining you in Hawaii, I said firmly. My plans haven't changed. I'm moving to Seattle in 3 weeks. But surely you can delay starting this job, my mother pressed. With your new financial situation, you don't need to rush into employment. The job isn't about financial necessity, I explained. It's about purpose and building the life I want. And what about family? Aunt Patricia asked pointedly. Doesn't family factor into the life you want? I looked around the table at these people who shared my blood but had never truly shared their hearts. Family should be about unconditional love and support, I said quietly, not conditional acceptance based on financial value. That's unfair, my father protested. We've always loved you. Have you? I asked simply. Because from where I sit, you've always seen me as an afterthought at best, and a nuisance at worst. The only time you've shown genuine interest in my life is in the past 20 minutes after learning I have money. That's ridiculous, Bryn scoffed. Just because we didn't coddle you like you apparently wanted doesn't mean we don't care. Basic human consideration isn't coddling Bryn. It's the minimum expectation in a healthy family. My father's patience visibly thinned. Enough of this psychological nonsense. The fact is, you've come into a significant sum of money, and as your father, I have concerns about your ability to manage it properly, especially given your apparent resentment toward this family. My finances are no longer your concern, I said firmly. And neither is my geographical location. I'm informing you of my decision to move as a courtesy, not seeking permission. If that's your attitude, he said coldly, perhaps we need to reconsider our relationship altogether. I won't have a daughter who disrespects her family this way. Are you threatening to disown me because I won't give you access to my lottery winnings? I asked incredulously. I'm stating that family comes with responsibilities as well as privileges, he said stiffly. If you choose to cut yourself off from us physically and financially, you can't expect to maintain the benefits of being a Parker. What benefits would those be exactly? I asked. The gift cards to restaurants I don't like. The constant comparison to Bryn. The identity theft. My mother gasped at my directness. Minnie, your father is simply concerned about your well-being. No, he's concerned about losing control, I corrected. And for the record, I've already taken steps to address the fraudulent loans in my name. My attorney will be in touch about resolving that situation legally. Attorney, my father repeated, genuine alarm crossing his face for the first time. Yes. The same one who helped me establish the blind trust for my lottery winnings, I explained. He found the identity theft situation quite interesting, especially given your profession in finance and the ethical obligations that come with it. The implied threat hung in the air. My father's financial career could be severely damaged by fraud charges, even if they were ultimately settled out of court. I'm sure we can resolve this as a family, he said, his tone suddenly conciliatory. There's no need for attorneys. I disagree, I replied calmly. I think attorneys are exactly what we need to establish proper boundaries. Just like I needed a financial advisor to help me manage my winnings and a therapist to help me understand that what I've experienced in this family isn't normal or healthy. A therapist, my mother repeated aghast. You're discussing our private family matters with a stranger. Yes, and it's been tremendously helpful, I confirmed. I've learned a lot about dysfunctional family systems and the damage they cause. This is absurd, my father declared, standing abruptly. If you want to throw away your family over imagined slights and misunderstandings, that's your choice. But don't expect us to welcome you back when you realize what you've lost. I stood as well, suddenly peaceful in the face of his anger. What I've lost, Dad? I never had it to begin with. That's what I'm finally accepting. As I gathered my purse and prepared to leave, Bryn called after me. So that's it. You get some money, and suddenly, you're too good for your family. I turned back one last time. This isn't about the money, Bryn. It never was. It's about respect, consideration, and basic human decency. Things that should be freely given in a family, not contingent on financial value or conformity to parents' expectations. I walked out of my childhood home for what I suspected might be the last time, feeling not the crushing sadness I had expected, but a profound sense of liberation. The family I had spent my life trying to please had finally shown their true colors in ways even I couldn't rationalize away. The road ahead might be uncertain, but for the first time it was truly mine to travel. 6 months later, I stood at the window of my Seattle apartment watching raindrops chase each other down the glass while the city skyline glowed softly through the mist. Contrary to my mother's claim, I didn't hate rain. In fact, I found it soothing. A gentle reminder that even the heavens sometimes needed to release what they'd been holding back. The months since leaving my hometown had been transformative. My position at the Westland Educational Foundation was challenging and fulfilling, allowing me to help create pathways to education for students from backgrounds similar to my own. My colleagues were passionate and supportive, forming the beginnings of what felt like a chosen family. My attorney had successfully resolved the identity theft situation. My parents agreed to transfer the fraudulent loans into their names and pay a settlement that covered the damage to my credit rating. The process was handled entirely through legal representatives. I hadn't spoken directly to either of my parents since that final dinner. Bryn had attempted contact several times, her messages oscillating wildly between guilt trips and casual conversation as though nothing had happened. I responded politely but briefly, maintaining firm boundaries. Without my parents' influence constantly reinforcing our dysfunctional dynamic, I found I could view my sister with something approaching compassion. She was in many ways as much a victim of our parents' toxic system as I was, though in a very different manner. My financial situation was secure. Following Diane's advice, I'd used a portion of my winnings to establish the Parker Educational Access Scholarship, specifically designed for students from emotionally neglectful backgrounds. The irony of using my family name for this purpose wasn't lost on me, but it felt like a way to reclaim it on my own terms. The vibration of my phone interrupted my contemplation. It was a text from Taylor, who had visited Seattle twice since my relocation and was planning another trip for the upcoming weekend. We had grown closer than ever, our friendship deepening into a bond that felt more like sisterhood than anything I'd experienced with Bryn. As I replied to Taylor, another notification appeared, an email from my mother. The subject line read, "Family lunch." I hesitated before opening it. "Minnie, your father and I will be in Seattle next Tuesday for a medical conference. Bryn mentioned you're doing well at your new job. We thought perhaps we could meet for lunch and catch up. Let us know if you're available, Mom." The casual tone was jarring after 6 months of silence following what had essentially been an attempted financial manipulation, followed by a threat of disownment. No acknowledgement of our conflict, no apology. Just an invitation to catch up, as though we were distant acquaintances who had simply lost touch. In the past, I would have jumped at this opportunity, desperate for any crumb of attention or approval. I would have rearranged my schedule, spent hours choosing the perfect outfit, rehearsed conversation topics designed to impress them without threatening their egos. I would have arrived early, anxious and hopeful, only to leave deflated and questioning my worth. Now I felt only a mild curiosity, tinged with wariness. What had prompted this sudden interest in reconnection? Had they genuinely reflected on their behavior and wished to make amends? Or was this simply another attempt to re-establish control now that legal matters had been resolved? After careful consideration, I replied, "Thank you for the invitation. I can meet you for lunch at Harborview Restaurant on Tuesday at 1230. Please note that I have a meeting at 2:00, so I'll need to keep our lunch to a reasonable time frame." Minnie. Setting clear boundaries from the outset felt empowering. I was no longer the desperate daughter eager for scraps of attention. I was a whole person with a valuable life and limited time. Tuesday arrived with crystal clear skies, a rarity in Seattle's autumn. I dressed professionally, in a tailored blazer, and slacks, an outfit that projected confidence rather than seeking approval. The Harborview restaurant offered stunning views of Puget Sound. But more importantly, it was public enough to discourage dramatic scenes, and close enough to my office to make a quick exit, if necessary. I arrived exactly on time to find my parents already seated at a window table. My mother had aged subtly in the 6 months since I'd seen her fine lines more pronounced around her eyes. My father looked essentially unchanged, his posture rigid with the same authority he had always projected. "Minnie," my mother said, standing to air kiss near my cheek, her signature greeting that avoided actual physical contact. "You look well." "Seattle agrees with you," my father added, remaining seated and extending his hand for a formal shake. "Though I'm surprised you don't mind all this rain." So we were starting with weather and appearances. The safest of small talk. "I actually enjoy the climate here," I replied, taking my seat and placing my napkin in my lap. "The city has been very welcoming." A waiter appeared to take our drink orders, providing a momentary reprieve from conversation. Once he departed, my mother launched into an update on various family members and hometown acquaintances, none of whom I had been particularly close to. I listened politely, nodding at appropriate intervals. "And Bryn has finally found a job," she concluded triumphantly, as though this was the pinnacle of achievement for a 27-year-old with a trust fund. "She's working at Lucille's boutique as a style consultant. The owner just adores her." "That's nice," I said neutrally. "I'm glad she's finding her path." "And how is your work?" my father asked, with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. Bryn mentioned something about educational grants. I gave them a concise overview of my position at the foundation, explaining our mission to increase access to higher education for underserved communities. "It sounds very charitable," my mother commented in a tone that suggested charity was a quaint but impractical concept. "I hope the compensation is adequate for Seattle's cost of living." "I'm quite comfortable," I assured her, resisting the urge to remind them of my lottery winnings. If they were here to rebuild a relationship, it shouldn't be centered on my financial status. Our entrees arrived, and the conversation drifted to my father's medical conference, my mother's social committee work, and various updates about their country club acquaintances. Nothing of substance was discussed. No acknowledgement of our estrangement or the legal proceedings that had concluded just weeks earlier. As dessert menus were presented, my father finally broached what I suspected was the real purpose of their visit. "Your mother and I have been thinking," he began, his tone shifting to what I recognized as his business voice. "It's been 6 months since our disagreement. Perhaps it's time to put that unfortunate episode behind us and move forward as a family." "What exactly does moving forward look like to you?" I asked. "Well, resuming normal family relations," my mother interjected. "Holiday visits, regular phone calls, that sort of thing." "And you believe we can simply return to normal without addressing the underlying issues that led to our estrangement?" I asked. My father sighed impatiently. "Many families have disagreements. Adults move past them without endlessly rehashing grievances. I agree that dwelling on past hurts isn't productive," I said carefully. "But acknowledging them is necessary for genuine reconciliation. Otherwise, we're just papering over the same problems that will inevitably resurface." "What acknowledgement are you looking for?" my mother asked, her tone suggesting this was an unreasonable demand. "I'd like acknowledgement that the way I was treated in our family was fundamentally different from how Bryn was treated," I said simply. "That my achievements were consistently overlooked while hers were celebrated. That financial support was withheld from me while freely given to her. That my boundaries and autonomy were disrespected, culminating in identity theft." My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "You've always been so independent." "Minnie," my mother began, falling back on the familiar justification. "Independence forced by necessity isn't the same as independence by choice," I pointed out. "And it certainly doesn't justify treating your children unequally. We did what we thought was best, based on each of your personalities and needs," my father insisted. Did you ever consider that my personality was shaped by your treatment of me? I asked. That perhaps I became self-sufficient because I learned early that I couldn't count on you the way Bryn could. Another uncomfortable silence fell. My father checked his watch, a habit he'd always employed when conversations turned in directions he didn't like. I need to be in a session in 45 minutes, he said. Perhaps this conversation is better continued another time. Actually, I said, I think it's revealed exactly where we stand. You want to resume a relationship without acknowledging or changing the dynamics that made it unhealthy in the first place. That's unfair, my mother protested. We've made an effort here coming all this way. An effort toward what exactly, I asked gently. Reestablishing the status quo where I accept less than I deserve and never question the inequity. That's not a relationship I'm interested in maintaining. My father's expression hardened. So you're still holding a grudge over perceived childhood slights. This is exactly why we were concerned about your judgment regarding the lottery money. And there it was. Even now they couldn't help revealing their true motivation. Is that what this lunch is really about? Checking whether I've squandered my winnings or perhaps hoping I might be convinced to share them? Of course not, my mother said quickly, though her eyes darted nervously to my father. I've established the Parker Educational Access Scholarship. I informed them deciding transparency was the best approach. It provides financial support to students from backgrounds where emotional or financial support was lacking. The irony isn't lost on me. My father's expression was unreadable. So you've given away your winnings to strangers. A portion of them, yes. The rest is carefully invested for my long-term security and retirement. Diane Mercer has been an excellent financial advisor. I've never heard of her, my father said dismissively. That's not surprising. Her practice focuses on helping women achieve financial independence, often following divorce or sudden wealth scenarios. I checked my watch, noting that my self-imposed time limit was approaching. I should prepare for my afternoon meeting. Minnie, my mother said, reaching across the table as though to take my hand, but stopping short when I didn't extend it. Can't we find some middle ground here? We're still your parents. We still love you. I considered her words carefully, searching for the genuine emotion behind them. What I found wasn't love, as I had come to understand it through therapy and healthy relationships, but rather a proprietary sense of entitlement, disguised as affection. I believe you love me in the only way you know how, I said gently. But that love comes with conditions that are harmful to my well-being. I've spent my entire life trying to earn the kind of love and acceptance you gave freely to Bryn. I'm not willing to continue that pattern. So that's it, my father asked. You're choosing to abandon your family over money and ancient history. No, I corrected. I'm choosing to prioritize my mental and emotional health over a relationship that consistently diminishes me. And I'm choosing to create my own family among people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide or how well I conform to their expectations. I signaled the waiter for the check. I'll take care of lunch, I said, handing over my credit card before they could object. Consider it a parting gift. Parting, my mother repeated, her voice small. I'm not saying I never want contact with you again, I clarified. But any future relationship will need to be built on new terms with mutual respect and boundaries. If you're ever ready for that kind of relationship, you know how to reach me. As I stood to leave, my father made one final attempt. What about Bryn? She misses having her sister around. Bryn has my number and email. She's welcome to visit Seattle anytime, provided she can respect my boundaries. The same applies to both of you. Outside the restaurant, I took a deep breath of crisp autumn air. The conversation had gone almost exactly as I'd anticipated. Yet I felt none of the anguish that such confrontations had previously caused me. Instead, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had stated my truth clearly and calmly, without anger or blame, but also without compromise on matters essential to my well-being. As I walked back to my office, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. A Christmas gift card, a lottery ticket, and the painful revelation of just how little I mattered to the people who should have valued me most. Yet from that pain had come liberation, self-discovery, and the courage to build a life on my own terms. The path hadn't been easy or straightforward. There had been moments of doubt, nights of tears, and the persistent ache of family-shaped absence. But there had also been triumph, joy, and the discovery of my own resilience. Most importantly, I had learned that family isn't defined by blood or obligation, but by respect, mutuality, and genuine care. My perfect family of 3 had never included me in any meaningful way. But the family I was building now, composed of chosen connections and authentic relationships, had room for me exactly as I was. As I settled at my desk to prepare for my afternoon meeting, I smiled at the framed photo I'd recently added, a group shot from a hiking trip with Taylor and my new Seattle friends. All of us laughing with wind-blown hair and mud, splattered boots. It wasn't perfect or polished. There was no coordinated clothing or professional photographer. But every face, including mine, shone with genuine happiness that I had come to realize was worth more than any inheritance, luxury car, or family name could ever provide. True wealth wasn't measured in dollar amounts or material possessions. It was found in the freedom to be authentically yourself, surrounded by people who saw your value not as a function of what you could provide, but simply because you existed. That was a lottery win far greater than any scratch-off ticket could deliver. And unlike my financial windfall, it was something I had earned entirely through my own courage, boundaries, and willingness to believe I deserved better. What would you do if you were in my situation? Would you have tried to maintain a relationship with family members who consistently undervalued you? Or would you have chosen the path of setting firm boundaries and creating your own chosen family? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your own path. Share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being, even when family pressure suggests otherwise. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the family you create is more nurturing than the one you were born into.